Today on Investigate TV Plus.
I didn't get sober for myself. I did it for my kids.
One mother's story of stolen sobriety and its threat to her family.
Parents don't quit on their kids or quit fighting, especially if they're in the right.
I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. The labs conducting the test go under the microscope as our investigation finds alleged false positive cases across the country.
Plus, rebuilding hope in a coastal community.
Big and better. People's not scared. They're coming back, and you can see the construction everywhere you look.
We travel to Louisiana's last inhabited barrier island to see how residents are trying to build a stronger future as they fight severe weather.
Then, celebrating our differences while creating community.
I'm going to take the photos and the characters that I identify with, and I'm going to try and draw them.
How an artist blends paint and culture to inspire more diversity.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. When a parent of the child welfare system fails a drug test, their kids are often sent into state custody.
But we've uncovered 2 companies contracted to do the test are under scrutiny after questions arise about their results.
Investigative reporter Sierra Cummings explains how false positives can keep kids from coming home and how a newer specialized test could dispel concerns about results.
I think I got it set for like 330 degrees. I wanted something that's more than a picture.
The heat press machine on Brittany Tucker's kitchen table, it was for personal reasons at first. Then came the professional ones too.
So I've got a large company shirt order coming in.
People wanting to memorialize a loved one, grief Brittany knows about well.
After my brother passed away, I took it the wrong way and I turned to drugs.
Brittany Tucker's addiction caused intervention in 2016 from Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services, or DFACS. Within 2 years, the state had removed all her kids from her home, including a newborn daughter. As in many states, when drugs are the basis of a Georgia child welfare case, a judge can require the parent submit to hair follicle drug screens. Court-ordered drug testing is common in this type of case, and the contracts with states can be huge. For example, in Idaho, records show the state has contracts with 6 drug test companies for more than $1 million each year. For Brittany, starting in 2016, DFACS contracted workers showed up to collect specimens to send off to drug testing labs.
I didn't get sober for myself. I did it for my kids.
She says she was sober with no more relapses by 2019. Just one problem. According to the state subcontracted lab results, multiple times when Brittany claims she was sober, she tested positive for methamphetamine.
I don't know if there's any words to actually put to describe that.
Our investigation uncovered the labs the state uses has a history of false positive allegations. Attorney Doris Good represents Brittany and advised the mom to start getting tested at independent labs too.
What's happening is defects are turning up positive and independent labs are turning up negative.
The attorney argued in juvenile court that hair follicle testing can and does result in false positives.
The cases where our clients are staying sober is really it's sad that they're losing their children because of false positives.
Brittany claims not only was her time with her kids robbed, but her sobriety stolen too.
Oh my God. You try to put on a brave face for them.
We found several civil lawsuits pending against the same 2 lab companies used in Georgia, alleging similar patterns of false positives. In court filings, the companies deny the allegations. In Michigan, the Child Welfare Agency terminated its contract with Avra Health over the claims. In Utah, the state has dropped that company as its provider due to questions over reliability. And in Texas, ExpertTalk's license revoked after allegations of inaccurate results and misconduct. Avra Health would not interview but says they've never been informed of a credible concern. ExpertTalk's now responding.
I was hired as a lab director to address laboratory operation concerns.
That's Dr. James Borland, the ExpertTox lab director hired in 2022. He says he's implemented a two-step approach to testing and confirmation now. He maintains there's no current pattern of faulty results. But Borland admits to knowing of at least one recent Georgia claim of a false positive hair test. He found the explanations of environmental contamination or the use of over-the-counter medicine were plausible.
I would agree that I can't rule out external contamination.
Turns out the company did not run a specialized test in that case. Historically, they haven't run it in other cases either. The test is called DL isomer, and although not required by the state, it could help rule out concerns of false positives because the method can determine legal forms of methamphetamine like nasal spray or an inhaler.
I mean, these are people's kids being taken away. So you're saying the test wasn't being used up front at the labs in Georgia, but you're willing to make sure that test is available at the labs in Georgia now?
This had nothing to do. Well, I mean, if we did the test and we didn't do an isomer test, then I'm willing to send it out to get an isomer test done.
Borland explains they didn't always have access to the specialized test, but he says now he'll make it a priority across Georgia.
It's just difficult to find a lab that can effectively do it.
But I mean, there are lives literally on the line, so it's...
Yeah, we can do that. And I'll make it my priority.
A move Brittany Tucker wishes would have come sooner. Back in her kitchen, this time she gets to use the heat press to memorialize a thank you.
These are like little tote bags that I made
for her attorney.
Without her, like, none of this would be possible.
The defects case officially closed, her kids finally home.
Parents don't quit on their kids or quit fighting, especially if they're in the right.
We mentioned in this story, Brittany had a newborn removed from her care too.
That birth daughter was ultimately adopted by a new family, a decision Brittany made early on after feeling defeated by her test results.
DFACS did not comment on this case, but said when there are allegations of false positives, they require sworn statements from the labs, which include details about the chain of custody, testing methods, and lab accreditation. We also asked why the agency is still doing hair follicle testing.
You can read their full response on InvestigateTV.com. Just search stolen sobriety.
Still to come, a promising option for patients whose prognosis otherwise looks grim.
Unfortunately, it used to be a death sentence, and now actually we have the gut to say we might be able to cure about 50% of patients.
We take an in-depth look at the newly approved treatment for a dangerous form of skin cancer.
But first, protecting coastal communities. How a vulnerable island in the Gulf of Mexico is strengthening its defenses against the next hurricane.
You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime online. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel at Investigate TV. You can catch stories and full episodes.
Exactly 16 years after Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana as a Category 3 storm, the state faced a stronger threat, Hurricane Ida.
On August 29, 2021, the Category 4 storm barreled ashore just 40 miles west with sustained winds of 150 miles per hour.
Ida devastated the state's last inhabited barrier island, Grand Isle, where during the height of the storm, the surge topped 10 feet.
We do have a good bit of water surge. I'm right now stationed with the Grand Isle Fire Department. We have a lot of flooding on the neighborhood. All of Highway 1 is underwater, side, back streets are underwater.
Some say Hurricane Ida did so much damage it made the town unrecognizable. But 3 years later, Grand Isle is bouncing back after completing some of the largest improvements in its history.
Reporter Rob Masson explains how Louisiana is not only rebuilding, but enhancing the island's defenses.
In some respects, 3 years after Ida and 19 years after Katrina, Grand Isle has never looked better.
Big and better. People's not scared. They're coming back, and you can see the construction everywhere you look on Highway 1 down the streets. Everybody's building back.
But if you look closer, some of Ida's wrath remains visible on Grand Isle, which saw nearly 90% of camps left tattered or destroyed.
We literally thought that our place was going to be sticks.
Ida shut down power on the island for nearly 3 months, but the grid was rebuilt stronger than ever. At a cost of $80 million. The forces of water are relentless on Grand Isle. To fight back, the Army Corps of Engineers is wrapping up nearly $120 million worth of new levee construction, much of it through pumped-in sand from the channels on either side of the island, topping a burrito levee made of clay.
Remember, you got that tube in there, you got our burrito levee that we designed, and we made sure that we put clay mud on top. And finally got the government right now saying the clay mud was the way to go.
There are about 500 camps on Grand Isle, and since Hurricane Ida, all but just about 30 have rebuilt, with some getting elevation grants or loans to build even higher than they were before.
It's unbelievable. They built the two of them over there. They just sold, for $3 million, one of them, because they didn't want waterfront property.
But for many, including Police Chief Chris Hernandez, it's been a struggle. He rebuilt his own home after Ida at a personal cost of $37,000, since he quit carrying insurance due to the high cost and decided to self-insure.
You know what I was doing? I was taking that $30-something $100 a year I was paying, putting it in the bank.
That high rebuilding cost has kept many people away. The K-12 student population at the Grand Isle School has plummeted.
We was, before Ida, we was 187 students, before Ida. Right now, I think we have 81 kids.
FEMA still has 8 trailers on the island for residents having trouble rebuilding, and the mayor wants them to stay.
The rent's so high right now in the summertime, and then we lost every little apartment, we're trying to get it together.
After spending more than 6 decades on Grand Isle, Mayor Carmodell remains passionate about trials, tribulations, and triumphs on an island that so far has been spared.
I'm worried. I walk on this beach every morning, keep an eye on it, pray a lot, ask God, but we don't need it right now.
But thanks to unprecedented federal investment, Carmodell believes the island is in better shape than ever to battle rising tides and storms of the future.
As work wraps up on a burrito levee damaged by Hurricane Ida, the mayor of Grand Isle has set his sights on the next phase of protection: rock barriers. They help sustain the levee system and help build up beaches that frequently endure severe weather. The goal is to have nearly 40 new segments by June of 2025.
When it comes to powering Grand Isle after Hurricane Ida, the utility company Entergy made significant upgrades to maintain and restore power faster during severe weather.
We've changed all of our engineering standards, and we're looking at building back with bigger poles, stronger poles, and structures that can withstand the face of what we know we need to expect here in South Louisiana.
In September of 2024, Hurricane Francine tested the island's upgrades, making landfall as a Category 2 storm. The Grand Isle mayor said a majority of the properties there retained power, and the rest had it restored in 2 days.
Still to come, an artist returns to her childhood playground to paint portraits that inspire inclusion.
But first, when faced with what doctors once considered a death sentence,
we were running out of things to do, quite honestly.
A patient turns to a groundbreaking therapy. We get insight into the treatment option that could save the lives of more people battling cancer.
While it's not as common as other skin cancers, it's often referred to as the most serious form, melanoma.
It develops when the cells that give the skin its tan or brown color start to grow out of control. And doctors say it's more likely to spread to other parts of the body if not found and treated early.
But there's new hope for patients whose previous treatment options might not have worked. In February 2024, the Food and Drug Administration approved the first cellular therapy to treat melanoma, known as tumor infiltrating lymphocyte, or TIL therapy.
Reporter Caroline Hecker explains how the treatment works and introduces us to a man who took part in the clinical trial that helped to lead to its approval.
As empty nesters, Scott and Sharon Gedeke are enjoying a new chapter of their lives. So 3 years ago, when Scott noticed a bump on the roof of his mouth, he never could have imagined the journey he and his family were in for. It all started with a call from his ear, nose, and throat doctor.
He said, you know, I have some concerning news from the pathologist. They are describing this as a melanoma. He said, I've been in practice 35 years. I've never seen anything like this.
That's because Scott was diagnosed with mucosal melanoma. While many skin cancers originate from prolonged exposure to the sun, Scott's form of melanoma forms in mucous membranes. Surgery to remove the tumor in his mouth took place in March of 2021. Radiation and immunotherapy started 2 months later in May. After a year of immunotherapy treatments and no sign of metastatic disease, he went in for his final infusion in April of 2022. He and Sharon went out to eat afterward to celebrate, but that celebration short-lived.
We're driving home and Emily, our nurse, called and said, you know, listen, I have to tell you this. The most recent scan, your scan from the other day, identified this small, but nonetheless, tumor that is suspected to be metastatic from your original tumor.
This time, the tumor was in his lymph node. News of the devastating development quickly made its way to Dr. George Anastas, a Washington University physician at Siteman Cancer Center overseeing Gedeke's care. Having studied the disease for many years, he's had a front row seat to all of the medical advancements.
Unfortunately, it used to be a death sentence, you know, I mean, barely we've cured any patients in the past. And now, actually, we have the gut to say even if somebody is metastatic, we might be able to cure about 50% of patients.
He was determined to make sure Scott fit into that category. After a third round of immunotherapy, the tumor in his lymph node did not progress. But Scott had a new problem. The cancer had spread to his lung. That's when Dr. Anastas told Scott he was a candidate for a new clinical trial at Siteman Cancer Center. For Scott, it was an easy yes.
I was headed in a direction that was, we were running out of things to do, quite honestly.
The clinical trial tested a new form of cellular therapy. Here's how it works. T cells, a form of white blood cells, exist within the tumor, but are outmatched and overwhelmed. So, doctors extract a piece of the tumor. The T cells within that sample are then multiplied by the billions in a lab before being put back into the patient, and theoretically, are more effective at killing tumor cells throughout the body.
This treatment, if it's all done, you know, it does hold about 30% chance for those who failed all prior treatment to achieve response.
And Scott,
you know, he walked in and he had a big smile on his face.
Was one of them.
And he said, "You're a responder."
The treatment successfully decreased the number of cancer nodules on his lung, and those remaining shrunk in size.
Dare I say this, it went from sort of, I don't know that I'll make graduation next year to, as we sit here today, I kind of sometimes forget that we've been dealing with this for 3 years.
To remove any doubt, he decided later to have the affected lobe of his lung removed. He continues with regular scans, but nearly 2 years later is living cancer-free. For Scott and his family, the risk worth every bit of the reward.
Just in that one moment where Dr. George came in, it was worth it.
TIL therapy is only approved to treat melanoma, but the doctor we spoke with calls it a potential game changer in the field of oncology. That's because early implications of data from the clinical trial show this kind of therapy on solid tumors may translate into other types of cancer.
Up next, a treasured family trait.
Whenever there's like a new baby born, we're always like, will they have the green nose? So.
How an artist is encouraging others to celebrate their individuality.
You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime, streaming online. Get the app for Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. They're free to download. A South Carolina artist is using what she calls her unique features to inspire inclusion and encourage creativity.
Reporter Shelby Roberts introduces us to North Charleston's first artist in residence.
Even when I'm painting, it's like I could be doing it for hours, but it doesn't feel like that to me.
Shane Green has had the capacity to create for as long as she can remember.
Ever since I was younger, I would be drawing the cartoons on the TV or different characters on the cereal boxes or Bratz dolls that I would get for Christmas. And I just always loved drawing.
The North Charleston native now paints directly across from the Park Circle Park she grew up playing in. She's the city's first artist in residence.
I feel like I'm able to represent my community and Black people in a way that others can see, so it's exciting.
While soft-spoken, Shane amplifies her voice through her very distinct style of artwork.
I call it the big nose baddies because all of my characters that I make in my paintings have big noses, and that was like a feature that my family identifies with. Whenever there's like a new baby born, we're always like, will they have the green nose? So
it's a small personal connection that Shane hopes has an even bigger impact when it comes to diverse representation in art.
Even in some of my art classes when I was younger, we weren't really drawing people that looked like us. And so that was something very interesting to me, and I was like, well, I'm gonna take the photos and the characters that I identify with, and I'm gonna try and draw them. This first one is actually the first big nose baddie that I ever made.
Really?
Yes.
As part of the North Charleston's application-based artist in residence pilot program, a South Carolina artist is selected every 3 months to create work in this studio at the Park Circle Community Building, while also sharing their pieces and process with the community.
I just want anybody who ever felt like I did, where you weren't seeing yourself, to be able to find my art and see themselves in it.
Well, so young and doing such amazing work.
So talented. I mean,
Yeah.
so distinct, her art, and it's really, it just jumps off there at you. It's really impressive.
I'd love to have a big nose baddie.
How about that, right?
At the house.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for us here on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, protecting pedestrians from dangerous drivers.
They don't pay attention to you. I've been almost hit numerous times.
We take an in-depth look at how your zip code could determine your risk of being hit and the solutions that could save lives.